The sirens had faded hours ago, but Officer Marla Jennings could still hear them echoing in her head. She sat alone in the precinct's break room, the hum of the vending machine, the only sound cutting through the silence. Her badge rested on the table, glinting faintly under the flickering fluorescent light, a symbol of everything she'd sacrificed to wear it. 13 years on the force had turned her heart to callous. She'd seen every kind of cruelty the small Midwestern town of Briar Creek could offer: overdoses, domestic disputes, suicides that left children parentless. Yet what haunted her most were not the crimes, but the quiet afterward, the way no one ever really talked about what it did to them. Her colleagues laughed, joked, moved on. Marla just stared into her coffee, replaying every scream she couldn't silence, every victim she couldn't save. The blue uniform gave her power, but it also took something away: the softness she once had. That night, the annual police benevolence fundraiser filled the precinct's back hall with the sound of country music, laughter, and cheap barbecue. Sheriff Don Harper, a broad-shouldered man with a voice like gravel, stood at the podium, toasting the brave men and women who keep Briar Creek safe. Marla smiled when people looked, but her eyes were elsewhere, detached, almost searching. She joined a force under Harper's mentorship a decade ago. He had guided her through the academy, pulled her out of bad calls, even helped her after her divorce. To everyone else, he was a pillar of authority. To her, he was the man who taught her to hide fear behind a badge. "Jennings." Harper's booming voice broke her thoughts. "You still with us?" She forced a laugh. "Wouldn't dream of leaving you, Sheriff." He chuckled, clapping her shoulder, the weight of his hand both familiar and suffocating. As the speeches dragged on, Harper invited a few family members of the department to help serve food: spouses, kids, even teenagers looking for summer volunteer hours. That's when Marla saw him. Eli Harper, the sheriff's son, was stacking trays behind the buffet line. 17, maybe 18. Tall, awkward, with a mop of sandy hair that refused to stay down. He moved with a clumsy sort of kindness, offering shy smiles to everyone, his eyes bright with that untarnished confidence youth carries before the world dulls it. When he handed her a plate, their hands brushed. Just a second of contact, nothing more. But for some reason, the room went quiet inside her head. "Thanks," she muttered. Eli smiled, easy and unguarded. "You're welcome, Officer Jennings. My dad says you're the best shot on the force." She tried to hide the small smirk tugging at her lips. "Your dad exaggerates." "Does he?" His tone held a hint of curiosity that made her uneasy. Too mature for his age. Sheriff Harper's voice boomed again from the stage, announcing the raffle winners. Laughter erupted. The moment broke. Eli turned away to refill drinks, but Marla found herself glancing back, just once. Something about him, maybe the youth, maybe the warmth, stirred a feeling she hadn't felt in years. Not attraction exactly. More like remembering what it felt like to be seen without judgment. Later, when the crowd thinned and the cleanup began, Marla lingered near the exit. Through the window, she saw Eli laughing with a group of deputies, his energy almost magnetic. The sheriff stood nearby, proud and oblivious. Marla turned away, buttoning her jacket. "Don't be stupid," she whispered to herself. But as she stepped into the cold night air, she already knew she'd see him again, and that it wouldn't be by accident. The blue line wasn't just about loyalty anymore. For Marla Jennings, it was about to blur beyond recognition. Marla told herself it was coincidence, that the grocery store, the shooting range, and the gym were simply places everyone in Briar Creek crossed paths. But deep down, she knew better. Each meeting felt designed, invisible threads pulling them closer, testing how far she'd let herself drift from the rules that defined her. The first time she saw Eli Harper again was 2 weeks after the fundraiser. He was at the community center, helping organize a youth safety workshop. She was scheduled to speak about self-defense. When he spotted her from across the gymnasium, his grin came instantly, unfiltered, genuine. She'd forgotten how easy warmth could look on someone's face. "Hey, Officer Jennings," he said when she approached. "Guess we're both doing the sheriff's dirty work today." She smirked. "Don't tell him that. He still thinks I'm his best recruit." Eli chuckled, his eyes lighting up. I think you might actually be. The compliment shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. It lingered in her chest long after she walked away. Over the following days, they spoke more often, sometimes in passing, sometimes during the community events Harper assigned her to. The sheriff trusted her implicitly, often asking her to keep an eye on the boy when Eli helped around the precinct. Marla tried not to think about the irony of it. Eli was curious about everything, about her job, her gun, her patrol stories, and eventually about her. One evening, after a late patrol, he waited by her car in the parking lot, pretending to be there for his father. The lot was empty except for the streetlight buzzing above them. "Long day?" he asked. Marla sighed, tossing her bag in the back seat. "They're all long." "Why do you do it then?" She looked at him, really looked. His tone wasn't mocking. It was sincere, searching. "Because someone has to," she replied softly. Eli leaned against the hood of her car, watching her. "You don't seem happy doing it." She froze. That line, that quiet truth, hit harder than any bullet. "I didn't say I wasn't happy." "You didn't have to." For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The only sound was the hum of the light above them and the faint chirp of crickets. Marla took a step back, forcing a professional tone. "You should go home, Eli. It's late." He smiled faintly. "You sound like my dad." "Good," she said, unlocking her door. "Means I'm doing my job." But when she drove away, she couldn't shake the image of him standing there, young, fearless, and completely unguarded in a world that had long since hardened her. The line between concern and desire blurred faster than she could control. A week later, she was called to the sheriff's property to help fix a patrol drone connection. Harper was out on a call, leaving Eli alone in the barn where the equipment was stored. He greeted her with that same unshakable grin. "Didn't think the sheriff's golden girl did tech support." She rolled her eyes, kneeling beside the table. "Golden girl's just making sure your dad's drone doesn't crash into another cornfield." They laughed. It was light, easy, until it wasn't. When she looked up, he was watching her too closely. The barn was silent except for the rustle of the wind through the rafters. "You ever get tired of pretending?" he asked quietly. Marla's breath hitched. "Pretending what?" "That you don't care about anything." The words hung between them, heavy, dangerous. Before she could respond, he stepped closer, too close, and for one suspended heartbeat, the air between them changed. Then, impulsively, foolishly, he kissed her. She pulled back instantly, her pulse hammering. "Eli, don't. You can't." But when she met his eyes, she didn't see guilt. She saw something far worse, understanding. He whispered, "You wanted that too." Marla turned away, trembling. "You need to forget it happened." Yet as she walked out into the night, her hands still shaking, she knew she wouldn't forget it either. The spark had been lit, and in Briar Creek, sparks never died quietly. The morning after the kiss, Marla couldn't look at herself in the mirror. Her reflection felt foreign, a stranger wearing her uniform, pretending to be righteous while carrying something rotten underneath. At the precinct, the fluorescent lights felt harsher, the chatter louder. Sheriff Harper was in his office, his deep voice booming through the walls as he spoke on the phone. Every word made her pulse spike. He had no idea, not yet. But guilt was a poison, slow, invisible, and impossible to hide forever. She busied herself with paperwork, trying to act normal. Her partner, Deputy Carla Nix, noticed the tension. "You look like you haven't slept in a week," she muttered, dropping a file on Marla's desk. "Just tired," Marla said flatly. Carla raised an eyebrow. "You miss perfect attendance? Something's up." Marla forced a faint smile. "Nothing I can't handle." It was half a lie, half a plea. That night, Eli texted her. "Eli, I'm sorry about yesterday. I shouldn't have done that. Eli, but I don't regret it." She stared at the screen for what felt like hours before replying. "Marla, we can't. Not again." But the truth was, she'd thought about it all day. The way his voice softened when he said her name. The way his touch had made her feel something she'd buried long ago wanted. Days turned into weeks, and distance became impossible. He'd show up at the range when she trained, pretending it was coincidence. She'd scold him for it, then stay an extra hour anyway. Every meeting was a test. How long they could pretend their conversations were innocent. How long before someone noticed. One evening, Eli caught her off guard outside the diner on Main Street. She was walking to her cruiser when he stepped out from behind a parked car. "Marla," he whispered. She froze. The street was quiet except for the hum of neon signs and the faint country music drifting from inside. "You can't keep showing up like this," she said under her breath. "I just needed to see you." "Eli, please." He took a step closer, his voice trembling. "You said we can't. I've tried to stay away, but I can't stop thinking about you. Tell me you don't feel it too." Marla's throat tightened. "You're 17. I'm a cop. Do you understand what that means?" "I don't care about rules," he said. "I care about you." His words hit her like a confession and a curse all at once. For a moment, she almost reached for him, almost gave in, but the sound of a passing patrol car jolted her back. She turned away, clutching her badge like a lifeline. "Go home, Eli," she said, "before someone sees." She didn't see him again for 3 days, but when she finally did, it was at the sheriff's house, an invitation she couldn't refuse. Harper had asked her over for dinner, proud to show off his son's good behavior. The irony nearly made her sick. At the table, Eli barely spoke. He avoided her gaze, pretending to focus on his plate. Marla did the same, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. Sheriff Harper, oblivious, laughed between bites of steak. "You two seem quiet tonight," he said, pouring himself another drink. "Eli here's been working with Deputy Nix this week. Might make a good cop one day, huh?" Marla forced a polite smile. "He's learning fast." When dinner ended, she slipped out quickly, but as she reached her car, Eli followed. His voice was low, urgent. "I hate pretending," he said. She turned, eyes glassy. "If you care about me, you'll keep pretending. It's the only way this doesn't destroy us." He looked at her for a long moment, pain flickering behind his eyes. "It already is." Marla drove off before he could say more, but in the rearview mirror, she saw him standing in the porch light, arms crossed, jaw tight, staring after her. And in that reflection, she saw what she feared most, the beginning of an obsession neither of them could control. By the time others noticed the change in her eyes, the secret had already taken root, and soon, whispers would start to spread. Whispers travel faster than radio signals in a small-town police department. By late autumn, they'd already reached every corner of the Briar Creek precinct. Officer Marla Jennings could feel it in the silence that followed her into rooms, conversations that stopped mid-sentence, sideways glances exchanged behind coffee cups. She didn't need to ask what they were saying. She could read it in their eyes. Something's off with her. It began after that dinner at the Harper house. 3 days later, Deputy Carla Nix caught Eli, waiting outside the station again. He claimed he was there to drop off files for his father. But when Marla stepped out from the briefing room and saw him, their eyes met. And in that brief flicker of recognition, Carla saw something else. That night, in the locker room, Carla leaned against the metal bench, her tone casual but sharp. "Kid's hanging around here a lot lately," she said. "Sheriff's boy. He got a crush on one of us, you think?" Marla kept her face steady. "He's just curious about the job." Carla smirked. "Sure, but I'd be careful. People talk." Marla turned away, pretending to check her locker. Let them. But the truth was, she was terrified. Every word Carla spoke pressed on the bruise she was trying to hide, the secret already rotting from the inside out. A week later, Harper called an early morning meeting. His tone was unusually stern. "Some of you may have heard nonsense floating around town about officers fraternizing inappropriately," he began. "I expect professionalism. Always." His gaze swept the room. When it landed on Marla, her pulse stuttered. Did he know? After the meeting, Carla caught her near the hallway. "You okay?" "Fine," Marla said too quickly. Carla lowered her voice. "Look, I don't know what's going on, but if it involves the sheriff's son, end it. Whatever it is. You don't want to be the next rumor people stop whispering about." Marla's breath trembled. "You think I'd risk everything for some teenager?" Carla held her stare. "I think you already have." That evening, Marla drove aimlessly through town. The sun dipped low, painting the streets in burnt orange and shadow. Every corner of Briar Creek felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in. Her phone buzzed. "Eli, why are you ignoring me? Eli, I heard people talking. Did you tell someone? Eli, please just talk to me." She typed and deleted 3 replies before finally sending one. "Marla, you can't text me anymore. People are watching." The dots appeared. Then his message came back. "Eli, I don't care who's watching. I love you." Her chest tightened. She threw the phone onto the passenger seat and pressed her palms against the steering wheel. He doesn't understand what this could do. At home, she poured whiskey into a chipped glass, staring at her reflection in the window. Outside, the streetlight buzzed like a warning. Every beat of her heart felt like a siren. 2 days later, during patrol, Carla called her over the radio. "Jennings, need backup at the Harper property. Sheriff's out on a call. Looks like the kid's home alone. Something about trespassers." Marla's grip on the wheel tightened. Eli again. When she arrived, the property was quiet, moonlight pooling over the gravel driveway. Eli stepped from the porch, relief flooding his face. "False alarm," he said softly. "I just wanted to see you." "Eli." He reached for her hand. "You don't get it, do you? I'd do anything for you." She pulled away, eyes wide. "Don't say things like that. You're making this worse." "Worse?" His voice cracked. "You're the only thing that makes me feel alive." Marla looked toward the tree-line, her heart pounding. "If anyone finds out, we're finished, both of us." Eli's expression hardened. "Then we make sure no one ever finds out." The cold in his tone startled her. For the first time, she saw something darker behind his innocence. A glint of obsession. Before she could respond, headlights appeared down the road. Carla's patrol car. Marla whispered, "Go inside. Now." Eli slipped back into the house as Carla's car rolled up. "You get the call handled?" Carla asked, stepping out. "Yeah," Marla said quickly. "Just raccoons, I guess." Carla studied her, suspicious but silent. Then she nodded and left. Marla exhaled shakily, watching the taillights disappear. But the look in Eli's eyes lingered in her mind. The promise he'd made in that cold whisper. No one would ever find out. The next morning, the storm finally broke, not in the sky, but inside the Harper household. Sheriff Don Harper had found something he was never meant to see. It started when Eli forgot his phone on the kitchen counter. Harper had picked it up, intending to call his deputy about a training schedule. But a notification flashed across the screen. A message from Marla Jennings. Just 2 words. "Be careful." The sheriff's face went pale. He scrolled, reading the rest. Fragments of late-night confessions, emotional pleas, and lines that blurred professional boundaries beyond repair. By the time he reached the photo of Eli smiling in Marla's patrol jacket, his hands were trembling. Outside, thunder rolled over the horizon. Inside, a father's rage began to rise. He waited until evening. Marla was on duty, parked behind a gas station, logging her patrol notes, when the sheriff's SUV pulled up beside her. His face was unreadable, eyes shadowed by the brim of his hat. "Step out of the vehicle," he said. His voice carried no warmth. Marla obeyed, heart pounding. "Sheriff, what's—" "Don't," he snapped. "Not a damn word until I'm finished." He held up the phone. Eli's phone. The glow from the screen illuminated the messages, their messages. Her stomach dropped. "Don, tell me this isn't real." His tone wavered between fury and disbelief. "Tell me you didn't touch my son." Marla felt the air drain from her lungs. "It wasn't like that. You have to understand." "Oh, I understand just fine." He stepped closer, the scent of rain and sweat thick between them. "You were supposed to protect him, and instead you—" He choked on the word. "Used him." Tears stung her eyes. "No. He came to me. He was lonely, confused." "Stop," Harper barked, slamming his fist against her car door. The metallic thud echoed through the empty lot. "You think that makes it right? You think his age doesn't matter?" She swallowed hard, trembling. "It wasn't planned. I didn't mean for it to happen." "Didn't mean for it to happen?" His voice cracked, raw with betrayal. "You are 34, Marla. He's 17. For a moment, neither spoke. Rain began to fall, soft, steady, like the town itself was holding its breath. Finally, Harper lowered his voice, each word sharp as glass. You're done. I'll have your badge, your job, and your freedom if I have to. You'll never wear this uniform again. Marla's chest heaved. You destroy me? After everything I've done for you? After all the years? I trusted you, he growled. You were like family. That word, family, cut deeper than any insult. She whispered, you don't know what it's like to give everything to this job and have nothing left. Harper shook his head. You made your bed. Pray I don't put you in a cell beside the ones you arrested. He turned and walked back to his SUV, slamming the door so hard it rattled the frame. As the taillights disappeared into the dark, Marla sank to her knees in the mud, her tears lost in the rain. Moments later, her phone buzzed, a message from Eli. Eli, he knows, doesn't he? Eli, I heard him yelling. What did he say to you? Eli, we can still fix this. Just meet me. Please. Marla's fingers hovered over the screen, shaking. She should have blocked his number. Reported herself. Anything but this. But the sound of Harper's voice, the disgust, the promise of ruin, echoed in her mind. She typed a single word. Marla, where? Eli's reply came fast. Eli, the old cabin by the quarry. Midnight. She stared at the message for a long time before finally whispering to herself, it's over. But she didn't delete the text. Instead, she drove into the storm, headlights slicing through the rain, toward the boy who'd become both her comfort and her curse. By the time the night ended, the threat would no longer be words, it would be blood. The clock struck midnight, and the storm hadn't stopped. Sheets of rain turned the roads into rivers, washing away everything but the sound of thunder and guilt. Marla's headlights cut through the darkness as she turned down the gravel road toward the quarry. The old cabin loomed ahead, its roof sagging like an exhausted secret. Every creak of the windshield wipers matched the rhythm of her heartbeat. She almost didn't see him at first. Eli stood near the porch light, soaked to the bone, hood drawn up, trembling. The moment she stepped out of the car, he rushed to her. Are you okay? He asked, voice cracking. He didn't hurt you, did he? She shook her head, wiping rain from her face. No, but it's bad, Eli. He knows everything. He's furious. Eli's eyes darted nervously toward the trees. He won't let us be together. He'll ruin you. He'll ruin me. Eli, she started, but he grabbed her hands. His fingers were cold, desperate. We can leave, he said. Right now. Just go. I've got money I've been saving. We can drive all night, cross state lines before anyone knows we're gone. Marla looked at him, really looked. The innocence in his eyes warred with the chaos in hers. For a brief, fragile moment, she almost believed it, that they could run away and make the noise stop. But the sheriff's voice echoed in her mind. You'll never wear this uniform again. I can't, she whispered. Running won't fix this. It's the only way, he shouted, lightning flashing behind him. You said you loved me. She flinched. I do. Then prove it. The silence that followed was suffocating. Rain poured harder, pelting the roof, and ground like bullets. Marla's breath came in shaky bursts. Eli, you don't understand. This isn't a movie. If we run, he'll come after us. The state police will come after us. You'll be branded and I'll. Then we die together, he interrupted, voice hollow. At least that way. No one can take us apart. Marla froze. Don't say that. But Eli's expression had shifted, calm now, eerily calm. I can't go home. He looked at me tonight like I wasn't even his son. Her pulse quickened. You talked to him? He came to my room after work. Said I made him sick. Eli's jaw trembled. Said you used me. That you're going to prison. She felt her knees weaken. Eli, he's not taking you away from me. Before she could respond, he reached into his jacket. For one horrifying second, Marla thought she saw a gun, but it was only a set of car keys. We're leaving, he said. Get in. Eli, listen to me. No. His voice broke. You promised me, remember? You said you'd never leave me behind. Marla's mind raced. She could see the headlines, the investigation, the ruin. She thought of her badge locked in the sheriff's desk drawer, stripped of meaning, of the empty nights she spent believing she was protecting this town. Maybe she was fooling herself all along. Finally, she whispered, "Okay." Eli blinked. "Okay, we'll go," she said softly, nodding once. "Just not far. I need to think." He smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him in weeks. "You'll see. Everything will be better once we're gone." They climbed into her cruiser. The engine rumbled to life, headlights piercing through the torrent. The rain swallowed their tire tracks as they drove toward the back roads leading out of town. Neither spoke for miles. Only the windshield wipers kept time, whispering a rhythm that sounded too much like a heartbeat. At the edge of the county line, Marla slowed. Her eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Red and blue lights flashed faintly in the distance, growing closer. "Eli," she whispered, gripping the wheel. "He's coming." Eli turned, panic rising. "Then drive faster." Marla pressed her foot to the gas, heart pounding. For a fleeting second, she thought they might actually escape. But in the reflection of the wet road, she saw something that froze her blood. Another set of headlights, cutting across the intersection ahead. The sheriff's SUV. And he wasn't alone. The cruiser's tires screamed as Marla swerved to the right, headlights slicing through sheets of rain. The world blurred, trees, gravel, and darkness colliding into chaos. Eli clutched the dashboard, shouting her name, but his voice was drowned by the sirens closing in. Behind them, Sheriff Dalton's SUV tore through the mud, red and blue lights flashing like judgment itself. Another vehicle followed, unmarked, but unmistakably police. The entire county, it seemed, had woken up to chase their forbidden secret. "Marla, don't stop." Eli yelled, panic and adrenaline twisting his voice. She didn't. She couldn't. The road curved toward the old bridge that crossed Hollow Creek, a narrow wooden pass that looked ready to collapse under its own history. The rain made the planks glisten like oil. Her knuckles whitened around the wheel. "Eli, listen to me. If we go across that bridge, we might not make it." "Then we take our chances," he shot back. "He's not letting us go. You know he's not." Lightning flashed. For an instant, she saw the sheriff's SUV behind them, close enough for her to see his face, eyes wide, furious, heartbroken. "Marla!" he shouted through the storm, though the sound was swallowed by thunder. They reached the bridge. Marla slammed the gas. The cruiser jolted onto the wooden boards, each one groaning beneath the weight. Water rushed below, wild and black. Halfway across, Eli turned, saw the SUV gaining fast. "He's gonna hit us." And he did. The impact was thunderous. Metal crunched, wood splintered. The cruiser lurched sideways. For a breathless second, Marla thought they were airborne. Then came the sickening splash as the front end plunged into the creek. Cold water flooded the floorboards. Eli screamed. Marla fought the seatbelt, gasping as icy current bit her skin. She saw him reaching for her, shouting something she couldn't hear. Then darkness. When she opened her eyes, the storm had quieted. Only the moonlight remained, pale and ghostly, filtering through drifting clouds. The cruiser was half submerged in the shallow edge of the creek. Steam rose from the twisted engine. Her head throbbed. Her right arm was bleeding. And Eli, he was beside her, breathing hard, blood streaking his temple. "You're alive," he whispered, voice trembling with disbelief. She nodded weakly, trying to focus. Where's your father?" Eli looked toward the road. The sheriff's SUV sat wrecked near the bridge entrance, headlights broken, but still glowing faintly in the rain. The driver's door hung open. Dalton was nowhere in sight. Marla stumbled out of the car, boots sinking into the mud. The moon broke through the clouds, cold silver light illuminating the scene. Her badge, still clipped to her torn jacket, caught the glint. For the first time, it didn't feel like protection. It felt like a curse. She heard something, a faint groan. She turned toward the trees. Dalton was there, crawling through the mud, one hand clutching his side. His face was pale, blood running down from his forehead. "Marla," he rasped. Eli stepped forward, eyes wild. "Stay back." "Eli, no," Marla whispered, reaching for him. He tried to kill us. He was trying to stop us, she said, voice shaking. He didn't want this to happen. Dalton coughed, trying to speak. Marla, please. It's over. Let him go. But Eli wasn't listening. His hand moved toward his pocket, and this time, it wasn't keys he pulled out. It was a small revolver, slick with rainwater. Marla froze. Eli, where did you get that? From the cabin, he said, voice cracking. I wasn't going to use it unless I had to. Put it down. He took everything from us. Eli's voice broke into a sob. He called you a monster. Said you'd rot in prison. I won't let him. Marla stepped closer, her body trembling. If you love me, Eli, please, don't do this. Dalton looked up at her, pain and fury clashing in his eyes. Marla, he's just a kid. The shots shattered the night. Everything went still. Dalton collapsed, eyes wide, a dark bloom spreading across his chest. Eli stood frozen, gun shaking in his hand. The echo of the gunshot drifted into the hills, swallowed by the storm's dying whispers. Marla fell to her knees beside Dalton, pressing her hands to the wound. No, no, no. He coughed once, eyes meeting hers. You chose wrong. Then he went still. Eli dropped the gun, staring at his trembling hands. He was going to take you from me, he whispered. I had no choice. Marla looked up at him, at the boy who had once made her feel alive, and saw only ruin. Sirens wailed in the distance, and as the moonlight turned the creek silver, she knew this was only the beginning of the end. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the room, steady, merciless, and cold. Marla sat hunched over the steel table, wrists cuffed, eyes hollow. A styrofoam cup of untouched coffee set near her elbow, steam long gone. Her reflection in the one-way glass looked like a stranger, bloodshot eyes, dried mud on her uniform, hair clinging to her face. The badge that once symbolized pride now lay sealed in an evidence bag across the room. Outside, the hallway buzzed with movement, voices, footsteps, the low murmur of officers who used to salute her. Now, they spoke her name like a curse. The door opened. Detective Ray Mercer stepped in, clipboard in hand. He wasn't part of Dalton's department. They'd called him in from the State Bureau. Neutral ground. No loyalties. He set the file on the table and sat across from her. You know why you're here, Sergeant Vega. Marla didn't look up. Don't call me that. I'm not a sergeant anymore. Mercer studied her face, expression unreadable. You were found at the scene. Sheriff Dalton was dead from a single gunshot wound. His son, Eli Dalton, was taken into custody covered in blood. You were both armed. She closed her eyes. He didn't mean to do it. Didn't mean to? Mercer's voice remained even. Witnesses say you were seen leaving town with him. High-speed chase. Bridge collapse. Gunfire. Which part wasn't meant to happen, Marla? Her throat tightened. All of it. Mercer leaned back. Let's start from the beginning. What were you doing with the sheriff's son? Silence stretched. She stared at her hands, wrists red from the cuffs. He came to me after his mother died, she said quietly. He needed someone to talk to. I should have known better. Mercer's pen didn't move. But you didn't stop it. She shook her head slowly. No. I told myself I was helping him. Then I told myself I was in love. Eventually, I stopped telling myself anything at all. Mercer slid a photograph across the table, a grainy image from the body cam footage taken that night. Dalton's SUV, lights flashing against the rain, Marla's cruiser half-submerged in the creek. A silhouette of two people, one holding a gun. Who fired the shot? Mercer asked. Marla stared at the photo. Eli, did you try to stop him? Her jaw trembled. I thought I could, but it all happened so fast. Mercer watched her carefully. The forensics team found your fingerprints on the weapon too. I tried to take it from him, she said, voice cracking. After he fired. I wanted to. I don't know, undo it somehow. He closed the file. You understand how this looks. You're an officer of the law, accused of aiding a minor in fleeing the county, and now an accessory to murder. Marla finally met his gaze. He's not a murderer. He's a boy who lost everything. His mother, his father, his future. I destroyed him. Mercer sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. You're not making this easier for yourself. I'm not trying to. He hesitated, then said softly, Eli's asking for you. Won't talk to anyone else. Marla's head lifted slightly. He's here. In the holding cell next door. His attorney's on the way, but he keeps saying the same thing, that it wasn't his fault, that you made him do it. Her face went pale. He what? Mercer folded his arms. He claims you told him to pull the trigger. Said you whispered something right before it happened. That's a lie. Then tell me what you did say. Marla's voice fell to a whisper. I told him to stop. I told him not to do it. Mercer studied her for a long moment, then stood. I'll see if he's still willing to talk. Maybe you can get him to tell the truth. As he walked out, Marla's reflection in the glass stared back, broken, silent, and waiting. Through the wall, faintly, she could hear Eli shouting her name. And in that moment, she realized the worst wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The walls of the holding cell were the color of faded sorrow, gray, cracked, and silent. Marla stood at the threshold as Detective Mercer unlocked the door. Her wrists were still cuffed, though now the chain hung loose. Eli sat on the narrow bench, head bowed, hands trembling in his lap. The moment he looked up and saw her, his face broke open with emotion, part relief, part fear, and something darker in between. Marla, he whispered. Mercer's voice cut through the quiet. 5 minutes. No touching. No lies. We're recording everything. Marla nodded. She stepped inside. The door shut behind her with a metallic click that echoed like a closing verdict. Eli rose slowly, as though seeing a ghost. They said you blamed me. She flinched. I didn't. They said you told them I shot him. Tears welled at her eyes. Eli, I told them the truth. His expression hardened. The truth, or the version that keeps you out of prison. Don't do this, she whispered. He stepped closer, eyes red and wild. You think I don't see what's happening? They'll twist it. They'll make me into a monster. But you. He jabbed a finger toward her chest. You'll get sympathy. The fallen officer. The poor woman manipulated by a teenage boy. Stop. You told me you loved me. Her voice trembled. I did. You said you'd protect me. I tried. Then why is my father dead, Marla? She couldn't answer. The question sliced through her like a blade, because the truth was she didn't know anymore where the line between love and destruction had blurred. Eli turned away, breathing hard. They're gonna lock me up forever. No, she said quickly, stepping forward despite Mercer's warning echoing in her head. Listen to me. If you tell them it was an accident, if you tell them you were scared. He whirled around. You want me to lie? I want you to live. For a long moment, the room was still except for their ragged breathing. The camera in the corner whirred quietly, capturing every tremor in their voices. Eli's tone softened. You think I don't know what you're doing? What do you mean? You're trying to save yourself. He gave a broken laugh. That's what you've always done. You didn't love me. You loved how I made you feel. Young again. Alive. Free. Her voice cracked. That's not true. Isn't it? He whispered. Would you have even looked at me if I wasn't his son? The question hit her like a confession she'd never wanted to face. She sank onto the bench, staring at the concrete floor. Maybe I was selfish, she admitted. Maybe I crossed a line I can never uncross. But I never wanted this. Not the blood, not the pain, not his death. Eli's voice wavered. Then why didn't you stop me? She lifted her gaze. Because for 1 second, I thought maybe he deserved it. Silence. Cold, suffocating silence. Eli's eyes widened, horror mixing with heartbreak. You wanted him dead? No, she said quickly, shaking her head. I was angry, Eli. He threatened to ruin us. I didn't mean it. God, I didn't mean it. He stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Then it is your fault. Marla stood. No, it's ours. From the hallway, Mercer's voice came sharply. Time's up. Neither of them moved. Eli took a slow step forward, his voice suddenly soft again. Do you remember what you told me that night at the cabin? Marla's throat tightened. Don't. You said love makes you do crazy things. I was wrong. He smiled faintly, tears running down his cheeks. No, you weren't. Because I did it for love, Marla. I'd do it again. The door opened. 2 officers entered to separate them. As they pulled her out, Eli shouted after her, You said you'd never leave me. She turned once, her face pale under the harsh lights, and whispered back, I never did. The door slammed between them, and through the glass, the recording light blinked red, still watching, still listening. Some confessions, it seemed, were never meant for forgiveness. The courthouse smelled faintly of polish and rain. Outside, cameras flashed beneath gray skies, reporters shouting questions that neither Marla nor Eli could answer. Inside, silence held the air like a clenched fist. 6 months had passed since that night at Hollow Creek. 6 months of interrogations, lawyers, and headlines that twisted truth into spectacle. The story had gone national. The cop, the boy, and the blood. Every whisper carried their names, every headline their sin. Marla sat at the defense table, wearing a plain black suit. The uniform was long gone. Her wrists still bore faint marks where the cuffs had once been. Across the aisle, Eli sat with his attorney, thinner now, quieter, eyes sunken with sleeplessness. He didn't look at her anymore. The state had charged her with corruption of a minor, obstruction of justice, and accessory to manslaughter. For Eli, the charge was second-degree murder. Both pleaded not guilty. But guilt, the kind that lived beneath the skin, needed no verdict. The prosecutor, a sharp-faced woman named Reese, stood before the jury. Her voice was cold, deliberate. A woman sworn to protect the law fell in love with a boy she was meant to guide. She crossed every boundary, emotional, ethical, moral, until someone died for it. Marla's attorney, an older man named Benton, didn't look up. He'd told her before the trial began, You'll have to let them hate you if you want to survive this. The first witnesses were officers from Dalton's department. One by one, they spoke of Marla's change in behavior, the late nights, the secrecy, the tension with the sheriff. Each word built a wall between who she'd been and who she'd become. Then came the moment she'd been dreading. Eli on the stand. He walked up slowly, avoiding her gaze. When the prosecutor asked him to describe that night, his voice cracked. We were scared. I thought he was going to hurt her. Did she ask you to shoot him? Eli hesitated. His eyes flickered toward her, just once, brief but loaded. No, he said finally. She told me to stop, but I didn't listen. Reese's tone sharpened. So you take full responsibility. He swallowed. No, we both broke something that can't be fixed. Marla's heart twisted. His voice wasn't angry anymore. It was empty, hollowed out by guilt and youth wasted too soon. When her turn came to testify, she stood like someone walking through fog. Benton's questions were simple. Did you love him? She hesitated, then answered quietly. Yes, but not the way I thought I did. I confused love with escape. Did you intend for the sheriff to die? Her eyes filled. No, I only wanted the noise to stop. The courtroom stayed silent. No coughs, no shuffling, just the low hum of fluorescent lights and the sound of truth landing like a slow bullet. The jury deliberated for 2 days. When they returned, the foreman's voice was steady. For Eli Dalton, guilty of involuntary manslaughter, sentenced to 12 years. For Marla Vega, guilty of obstruction and misconduct, sentenced to 8. The gavel fell, and the room exhaled. Reporters rushed outside to feed the headlines. The judge stood. Benton whispered, It's not the worst it could have been. Marla didn't respond. Across the room, Eli turned to look at her for the first time in months. His lips moved soundlessly. I'm sorry. She nodded once, a tear slipping down her cheek. As officers approached to lead her away, she glanced toward the gallery window. Through the glass, sunlight broke through the clouds for the first time in weeks. It didn't feel like forgiveness, just an ending. The cell was small, just wide enough for a cot, and a metal desk that scraped against the wall when Marla moved. The air carried a faint scent of bleach and iron. Every morning, the guards walked past without looking in, routine replacing recognition. Marla Vega had been inmate 4729 for a little over a year. Her world had shrunk to gray walls and narrow glimpses of sunlight through a barred window. The silence she once feared had become a strange kind of peace. She no longer waited for anyone to call her Officer Vega. That title belonged to another life. The first letter from Eli came 3 months after sentencing. She found it tucked under her pillow during morning inspection. His handwriting was uneven, part apology, part confession. They moved me to Green Correctional. The nights are long. I think about that night a lot. How fast everything went wrong. I still don't know what kind of love it was, but I know it broke both of us. She didn't reply at first. The rules didn't forbid correspondence between inmates, but she didn't trust herself to open that wound again. Instead, she reread his words until the ink began to fade where her fingers traced the lines. The second letter came 2 months later. They let me work in the library. I started reading the books you used to talk about, Baldwin, Hemingway. I don't understand half of it, but it makes me feel like I'm still learning something. I still dream of Hollow Creek. You're standing by the water, saying nothing, like you're waiting for it to forgive us. This time, she wrote back, you were never my mistake, Eli. The choices we made were. Don't let them define you. Read. Learn. Become the man that boy never had the chance to be. From then on, the letters continued, sometimes brief, sometimes long enough to fill several pages. They talked about small things. The smell of the rain, the sound of distant trains, the food that always tasted like metal. In between the lines, they wrote what they couldn't say out loud. Regret, remembrance, and the quiet acceptance that they'd never see each other again outside these walls. Occasionally, Marla received envelopes from her sister, Julia. They carried updates from the outside world. A new sheriff had taken over. The Crimson Lounge had been demolished. Dalton's widow had sold the property and moved away. But one sentence in Julia's last letter stayed with her. People still talk about you, but not with hate anymore. Some say you were protecting him. It didn't feel like redemption, but it was enough. On her second anniversary in prison, Marla began teaching literacy classes to younger inmates. It gave her purpose, something steady to hold on to. The women called her Miss Vega, and for the first time, the name didn't sting. Late one night, she received another letter from Eli. It was shorter than usual, the handwriting shakier. I'm getting out in 5 years for good behavior. I don't know where I'll go, but I'll write you again before I leave. If you don't write back, I'll understand. She read it over and over until the paper softened in her hands. Then she wrote one final letter, careful, deliberate. Eli, I want you to live free. Don't come back for ghosts. Some stories end quietly, and that's how they're meant to end. You saved me once, now save yourself. She sealed it and handed it to the guard the next morning. Outside, the sun rose pale and slow over the prison yard, washing the walls in soft gold. For the first time, Marla smiled. The silence around her no longer felt like punishment. It felt like peace. Months after Marla Vega's final letter left the prison, the Crimson Lounge stood silent. The neon sign that once glowed crimson against the night had been torn down, leaving only rusted hooks above the door. Rainwater pooled in the cracks of the parking lot, and weeds crept through the broken concrete like quiet witnesses to everything that had happened there. Carla Monroe, once the Crimson Lounge's manager and one of Marla's oldest friends, stood at the entrance holding a single key. She had kept it all these years, even after the club closed. The county had finally approved demolition, and she wanted one last look before the building disappeared for good. Inside, dust floated through the air like ash. The stage lights, long dead, hung from frayed wires. A single chair sat at the center of the floor where the spotlight used to fall, the place where Marla once stood the night she met Eli Dalton. The memory was heavy enough to make Carla pause. But she wasn't alone. A soft tapping echoed from the back of the room. Small footsteps, hesitant, familiar in rhythm. A young girl emerged from the shadows, barefoot, wearing a faded denim jacket. She couldn't have been more than 9. Carla's breath caught. Lana, she whispered. It was Eli's daughter, Lana Dalton. She had come with her aunt, who waited outside in the rain. The girl looked at the stage and smiled shyly. "My dad told me about this place," she said. "He said my mom used to dance here." Carla nodded, her throat tight. She didn't correct her. Some truths were too heavy for a child to carry. Lana stepped onto the stage and began to twirl slowly, arms stretched, eyes closed. The wooden floor creaked beneath her, each turn echoing like a ghost of the past. She wasn't really dancing. She was pretending. Pretending to be her mother. Pretending that the world hadn't already stolen too much from her. Carla watched, tears pricking her eyes. For a moment, the room seemed alive again. The music wasn't there, but the memory of it was faint, like the hum of an old jukebox, still playing somewhere deep inside the walls. Outside, thunder rumbled. Carla walked to the stage and placed her hand on the edge of the wood, whispering, "Your mom was brave. She made mistakes, but she loved harder than most." Lana stopped and looked down at her. "Do you think she's happy now?" Carla forced a smile. "I think she finally found peace." The words lingered in the air, soft and certain. As they left, Carla turned the key in the lock one last time. The door groaned shut, sealing decades of memories inside. She slipped the key into her pocket, unsure why she couldn't throw it away. That night, in her small apartment, she found an envelope on her doorstep. It was postmarked from Green Correctional, dated 3 weeks earlier. Her hands trembled as she opened it. It wasn't from Marla. It was from Eli Dalton. "They say she's up for parole soon. I hope she gets it. She deserves a life after all this. If she ever asks, tell her I read every word she sent me. Tell her I finally forgave myself." Carla folded the letter carefully and placed it beside an old photo of Marla and Eli, taken years before the blood, the rumors, the tragedy. Two faces frozen in a moment when love still felt innocent. The next morning, demolition crews arrived at the Crimson Lounge. Carla stood across the street with Lana, holding her hand. The first blow of the wrecking ball hit the building, sending dust and memories into the gray morning sky. As the walls crumbled, Lana whispered, "Goodbye, Mom." And somewhere, far beyond those walls and time itself, Marla Vega's heart, finally free, whispered back, "The end."